Declaration of Timofey F., an exhibit in support of the Flores Agreement. I, Timofey F., declare under penalty of perjury that the following is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and recollection. My date of birth is March 5, 2003. I am from Russia. My mother's name is name redacted, and my father's name is name redacted. I do not know of any other relatives I may have here in the United States, but I know of an organization, Jehovah's Witnesses, that operates all over the world. I am a Jehovah's Witness, as is my family, and the government prohibits my organization from existing in Russia. If anyone finds out I am a Jehovah's Witness, I believe I will be jailed for 10 years. I am very afraid of that. I do not remember when we left Russia, but it was approximately a month ago. I just learned that it is July 6th, but I thought it was still June. I am detained here with my mother, who's in a different room, and my father also arrived here with us. I believe my father is also here, not in the same room with me, but in the last 4 days I saw him once, when the officer let us meet. My mother and I took a plane to New York. My father went to Tijuana by himself, and we were planning to reunite as a family once we were all in the United States. My father was waiting in a long line to cross the border. From New York, my mother and I flew to either San Diego or San Ysidro. My mother and I decided to meet him in Tijuana, where he was in line, so we could be together as a family. My father did not have a visa, and my mother and I had tourist visas. They told us once we entered the San Ysidro pedestrian facilities, the visas my mother and I had were no longer valid. We were waiting in line, and our number was 320. We waited for several days in this line. However, during that time, my mother, who speaks English, went back to San Ysidro several times during the waiting period, and eventually we crossed the border by foot. When we crossed, we explained that my mother and I have tourist visas. I can barely remember dates about the crossing or about the trip. I haven't looked at the calendar and do not even know what the date is today. We all three of us are Jehovah's Witnesses and are being prosecuted in Russia, and we're all asking for asylum. On my second day in this facility, I met with my dad for 15 minutes in an unknown place inside this camp. We did not meet in a room. It was more like a corridor, and there were chairs in that corridor. That was the only time I saw my father in this facility. We got lucky yesterday, and my mother and I were able to eat together. I saw her several times, either eating together or she asks the officer to come see me. Every time we see each other, we eat together. My body hurts because we have to sleep on hard mats. The reason my body hurts is that we're crowded and we have to sleep in uncomfortable positions. It's really hard for me to measure. I cannot really think about it in meters or feet right now, but it's very crowded. If people were standing with arms outstretched touching fingers, the room would be 2 people by 3 people in length and width. There are only teenagers in my room, but recently there have been 2 new boys aged 12 and 13. I believe it's a mistake they were placed in our room. I asked the ages from some of the teenagers, and the oldest was 17 years old. I have a blanket, I think made of wool, but it barely fits my body. Thankfully, I have 4 layers of clothing. The cafeteria is about 8 by 12 people outstretched. There are 50 people at a time in there, and there are not enough seats for everybody. Some people stand, and some people sit on the floor. Approximately 15 people do not have seats. I eat 4 times a day. The first time between 5 and 7 a.m., the second time around noon, the third time around 4 p.m., and finally around 10 p.m. The food is not freshly made, it's likely frozen. The food is lukewarm, it's not really warm and it's not really cold, it's room temperature. For breakfast, there are usually burritos or cereal, but they do not taste good. I cannot eat them. For lunch, there's usually a sandwich, and then there are hamburgers for the other 2 meals, and with all meals there is a juice, either a mixed juice or apple juice. One time we ate breakfast without juice. Because we are not doing any physical activity here, I have enough food. All day we are in a locked room. However, twice a day our room gets cleaned and we're moved to the kitchen. All I do is eat, sleep, and try to learn Spanish. There is only one window in the room, and all we see is an empty corridor. I have not seen sunlight since I have been staying in the camp. The ventilation here makes it very cold throughout the entire camp. 24 hours a day, there are 1 or 2 big light panels turned on all the time. I cannot tell the difference between night and day. I can only estimate time of day based on what I eat. In my room there is one bathroom, and it has no door, and the sides are shaky, and they're not really walls. There is one bathroom with one toilet and no shower. There are from 5 to 12 people, depending on how many people arrive at night and how many people leave in the morning. There is no soap in the bathroom. Sometimes I'm provided a single-use toothbrush that has a tiny bit of toothpaste on it, but I don't always get that. On the second day I did not get a toothbrush. The toothbrush is only a sponge on a stick. On the first day, they offered us the opportunity to take a shower, but not on the second or third day. I have not taken a shower since I arrived at the camp. I'm still wearing the clothes I came in with. I never imagined in my entire life that I would find myself in these circumstances, in this type of place. There are 2 situations that I consider to be the worst here. The first is that I'm separated from my mother and father. That really wears me down and weighs on my soul. The other situation that has been really difficult for me was that yesterday a teenager who crossed the border illegally was put into my room, and he was very angry. When he found out I was from Russia, he started to bully me in Spanish. He did not let me sleep. He did not try to hurt me physically, but he was making fun of the fact that I was Russian and laughing at me. Nobody supervises us. Sometimes, very rarely, officers will walk in through the hallways. There are also cameras in the room. The only word that people around me know in Russian is know how to say hi. I do not talk to anyone in my room, and only one of them speaks English. My family and I have not been in other facilities. I do not remember, and I do not know if I was provided writings about my legal rights. I do not remember any documents. I am being kept separately from my mother and from my father. The only banner I have seen is that the mats we sleep on need to be organized, and I have received no other instructions. My family and I have been at the San Ysidro pedestrian facility for about 4 days. I have not been told when I will be released from here. I want to add that the circumstances for the men are much worse. They sleep on blankets and have to cover themselves with plastic bags. I walked by their room, and there was a window into the room for the men. Also, when they clean our rooms and were moved to the kitchen, I saw men in their room holding their rugs or blankets and plastic bags with them. Only about 10 of the 50 people in there have the mats. Because I am a Jehovah's Witness, I am prohibited from swearing. Therefore, I must provide an oath to tell the truth, but put it in different phrasing than it is usually used by the court. I am allowed to promise, but not swear. I take a promise to tell the truth very seriously. I, Timofey F., promise under penalty of perjury that the above declaration is true and complete to the best of my abilities. This declaration was provided in English, a language in which I am not fluent, but was read back to me in Russian, a language in which I am fluent. June 7th, 2018.